So about 15 years ago, marketers would often say that word of mouth is the best marketing. But while they said that, they didn't usually act like that was the case. Most marketers put most of their resources into interrupting us in some way, shape or form. So for instance, we are watching TV in order to see sport and they interrupt us with an ad. We're reading a magazine because we have interests in what the magazine's about and they interrupt us with an ad. And so marketing was really a world of interruption. And what's exciting about the modern world is that that is shifting. That social media is part of a broader trend, which is transferring power from institutions to individuals by giving them access to the tools for distribution, sharing and coordination that once were exclusively things that only institutions could access or use. And the reach today that these tools give us is simply extraordinary. Only 10 years ago, there were only 2 entities on Earth that could claim 1 billion adherents. The country of China and the Catholic Church. Now there are 4 and soon to be 5 social media platforms that each have more than 1 billion participants, with Facebook on top with almost 2.3 billion. These numbers are extraordinary and they give us incredible opportunities to reach out to people and connect with them. But remember, you don't use Facebook because you're trying to reach 2.3 billion people. You don't use Twitter because you're hoping to reach 330 million. What you're using to do is to access the diversity within those platforms, to connect with specific groups, with your specific hooks that are going to resonate with your story. So what's really powerful about Facebook is not that total number, it's the fact that within that number, there's millions of specific communities built around specific Facebook pages or groups or influencers. And it's those specific sub-communities that are the channels that you are looking for. And what's really interesting about today's world is not just that we have an alternative to the marketing of interruption, but that whole approach is becoming less and less relevant in today's world. In America, there's the rise of what they call the Netflix-only households, families who have foregone any traditional television subscriptions or channels to use only Netflix. And in those households, 82% of kids have no idea what a commercial is. They've literally never seen one, never heard of it, don't know what you're talking about. Isn't that amazing? You add to that even online we have the rise of global ad blockers. Now with over 275 million people using them, you can't even interrupt people on the websites they go anymore. So where once successful marketing was about applying significant budget to interrupt people in the places where they gathered, now it's about the quality of the content itself. That you can't just pay to get your story in front of people. Your story has to be the kind of story that they would share, the kind of content that they want to put in front of their networks. I think one of the organizations that has best understood and leveraged this shift is Charity Water. Charity Water wasn't founded by a traditional not-for-profit guy. It was founded by a nightclub promoter in New York. And he applied his understanding of marketing to how to make an organization doing work that is pretty traditional and unsexy, digging wells and providing water to poor people in the developing world, and how to make it really exciting and really positive. And this was one of their early campaigns. Will the beautiful women of the world please stand up? And this is so different from how not-for-profit organizations and development NGOs have traditionally marketed themselves. They've traditionally focused on the deficit and on negative aspects of the people they're supporting. And so that's where you see the classic not-for-profit kind of images of poor children with distended bellies and flies in their eyes and cracked lips. Charity Water did it really differently. Instead of just focusing on what these women or communities lacked, they focused on what they had. That in all these communities, there are incredible, beautiful women stepping up and being resilient and being being innovative in how they're supporting their community, even under very trying circumstances. And it's those women that Charity Water wants to support, and they're inviting all of us and all the other beautiful women out there to step up in support of those women. And this has turned into an organization that has millions of followers online and was one of the first to really leverage crowd platforms for significant fundraising through their Donate Your Birthday campaign, which even in the first year in 2015 raised over $1.5 million. And the reason they're able to do that is not because they present, even though their issue is serious and kind of, technocratic, they present it in a way that is uplifting, inspiring, positive, and shareable. And that's what I want you to do as well. So when you think about channels, what matters is the channels that you're that your audience that you're trying to reach use. It's not about what you enjoy using most. It's about what your prospective donors are using and where they are, what they care about, and how you can reach them. And so even if let's say you're a university student launching a project on campus, it makes a really big difference whether you're trying to target students or lecturers as your supporters in terms of how you'd approach that. Even within that ecosystem of the campus, you'd use very different channels. By channel, we mean anything that allows you to reach people with your story. Taking someone for coffee is a channel. But what we're looking for is channels that give access to multiple people at once, nodes of potential supporters, not just individuals. So for instance, if you were targeting university students, you might do things like lecture bashing. If you've never heard that phrase, that's where you stand up at the front of a university lecture and make an announcement before the lecturer has a chance to speak. So you take advantage of the kind of captive attention of the students there. You might stick up posters on campus, you might put an ad in the student newspaper, things like that. But if you are focusing on staff and lecturers, you'd approach it differently. You might try and organise a presentation or a lunch and learn in the staff room. You might use their staff email list and things like that. You might send them you might put individual letters or notes into their mailboxes and so on. And so what matters is the channels that help you reach the people you're trying to reach. That means you shouldn't just limit it to online. One of the mistakes people often make with crowdfunding is they think that because the crowdfunding platform itself or the campaign is online, that they limit themselves to using only online channels to access people or to target people. But the real world is a way, we sort ourselves out in the real world as well, and the real world is a really powerful place to target, and it has a whole set of channels. So for instance, if you're targeting, let's use my food truck example, a food truck providing local organic food, let's say, and creating employment for homeless people, one of my target markets would be local foodies, people who really care about quality food, new experiences, and so on. Now, there's probably ways that I can target them online, certain blogs, hashtags, Facebook groups, and so on. But there's also, no doubt, powerful ways I can target them offline by putting my collateral, flyers, posters in very specific organic food shops, specific cafes, and the kinds of places where I have realized that my target market congregates in the real world. So as you map out your different intended audiences and the different channels you're going to reach to use them, things like phasing and timing matter a lot. So one way to think about your crowdfunding campaign is as a series of concentric rings, and each of them represents a degree further removed from you and from the issue. So in the very middle ring is your closest friends and families. The next ring out might be the active supporters of your organization, your board members, your staff, your active volunteers, and your traditional donors. The next level out might be people who are really actively involved in your issue, in the broader community around that issue. The next level out from that might be people who are reading foodie blogs, et cetera, et cetera. And the reason that you need to do these in order, you can't just send to all these channels simultaneously, is because they're going to respond differently at different stages. One of the great challenges of crowdfunding is what we call the day one donor paradox, which is generally people don't want to support crowdfunding campaigns that no one else has supported yet. So that creates a bit of a challenge for fundraisers. The only way to overcome that challenge is to get support from your close family and friends first. They're not off-put by the fact that no one else is yet supported, and they have a whole extra level of kind of nuance and connection to what you're doing through their relationship with you that others don't have. And so you want to try and activate what we call your day one donors first, probably by communicating with them before your campaign even launches and having them ready to go on the first day. A little bit after that, you'll probably launch to your broader community. In the middle of the campaign, you'll be focusing on influencers, PR, media, and outreach to partner groups and different community groups. And then at the very end of the campaign, particularly if you're a little bit short of your all or nothing goal, you'll want to return to your closest, you'll want to kind of come back to the middle again and go back to your close friends and family, and also back to your existing supporters to ask for one more boost to get you to the finish line.